right, hey, look, little bit of little morbid stuff. I like to tell people things whenever I talk to folks like this that you would not be able to look up or find out on your own. Here's my little bit of insight for y'all.
Hey everybody, welcome to Talk Culture. I am Kid Cadet, and look who is my co-host tonight. I am so excited, and we are so excited. He is the one and only RJ City. How you doing, RJ?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to fill in and realize, the only reason I am here is because we have a slice of the warm apple pie that is nostalgia waiting for us in the oven.
Oh gosh, I am so excited. We have been talking about this now since we knew it was going to happen. Like every day, you and I have just been sharing our excitement. RJ, what do you say? You want to get started?
I would like to, and I will also use an intro from the original Nick Arcade. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the man who can't get 12 to stop blinking on his VCR, Phil Moore.
Woo! What's going on? First of all, that intro music is just like, I'm just sitting there like, it sounds like nostalgia. It sounds like 2007 Rock Band. And I was like, but hey, good to be here. Gosh, this has been an exciting, fun day. And for me, it's still like, it's not even 4:30 yet out here in LA, but it's good to be here. And RJ, a whole city, man. Your name's a city.
Yes, I started as a Hamlet. And I really grew from there.
I wanted to be Philtown, but
you can be Philtown. That would be great.
Won't you take me to Fillmore Town?
Oh, I like it. We should. Oh my gosh. Okay, Philtown it is. Got RJ City, Philtown, and oh my gosh, we are so excited, Phil. Kind of just to get things started. Growing up, did you always have the dream of being a host or being in show business?
Nope, not at all. Zero. Not even a thought, not even like a thing in the back of my mind. I thought it was funny because once I became, when it ultimately happened, my friends, you get around with friends that you grew up with. And as we sit around now as, accomplished adults, we all sit back and we were all talking about, hey, I saw that in you. I saw that in you. And all of my friends, I have like 4 friends, ride or die. I've known these people for at least 40 years. And they all sit there and go, nope, never thought this ever, never, ever. They thought I was going to be like a scientist or like, if nothing else, a Doc Brown. You know what I mean? Because I was all into that. I was into space and astronomy and superheroes. That was like where I was living. And even when I ended up before, making the paradigm shift in the show business, I mean, I went to an engineering college and was working for AT&T as a programmer, before any of this happened. So they were all like, looked at me and like, what the hell? What? You're doing what now? And so that came out of left field.
So let me get this straight, because I did some research on your whole life.
Oh boy.
You moved to Florida, you do school, you're working for AT&T, they go on strike, you're on the picket line. Right. You're making jokes, and they're like, hey, why don't you go to an open mic?
Exactly. Yeah. It was the exact line. The exact line was, yo, man, like, when you're on the picket line, you're making no money, And it was like we were having fun. And this one guy who was not having fun said, hey, man, we having too much damn fun to be broke, man. That's exactly how he said it. And somebody said, yeah, you should go up there and make some money, take care of us while we out here picketing. And that's when somebody said, yeah, man, no, seriously though, there's this new comedy club open up and they've got open mic nights. And that literally, it was like, it was one of those rare times when I didn't say a word. This entire ball was like instigated by all of my coworkers. And then they kind of looked at me and went, so when you're going? I'm like, when I'm going, I don't even know what you're talking about, So yeah, that is that great homework. You are the Dark Knight detective, man.
Thank you.
Because you didn't just get the dossier, you got the verbiage, man.
No, RJ wrote your like biopic. Like
if you want to do a memoir, I got all the notes.
Go ahead, RJ.
Well, I was going to say, unfortunately, I cannot find any footage of the Phil Moore stand-up. So can you give me a gist of like generally what kind of comedy you were leaning towards, what the act was?
Okay, well, the thing that was interesting, because this is how it segues into me be working in television. This guy that I am right now, the guy that you saw on Nick Arcade, this is who I am. I'm that like hyperactive, I call myself the Ritalin poster child, but this has always been me. And so when I got in this show business, it was really interesting because like I never saw anybody who really looked like me who did what I did outside of maybe Sinbad. I mean, I cuss a little bit, but it's not like a lot, you know what I mean? So I couldn't go up and do like Eddie Murphy type material, you know what I mean? I wasn't going up doing like how most clubs did. If I was going to do this, I was just going to be an extension of who I really was. If you don't like the hyperactivity, fortunately, there were cats that I grew up watching back in the day. Like before Steve Martin became the actor, Steve Martin was the stand-up comic. He was bouncing around with all this energy. Before Howie Mandel became a bald head guy on AGT, he was a stand-up comic who was bouncing around all over the stage. So I saw other people who managed to make their energy work for them. And so I just kind of like, I hope people accept it coming from a guy who's a little bit tanner. And it was, what was the question again?
Your act. What was your act?
Oh yeah, my act was basically my life. I talked about the first thing I talked about was being on strike. You talk what you know. So I talked about that. And then after I did it for a little bit, I found out like within a couple of months of doing it that I was my ex-wife, my wife at the time was expecting. So I was going to be a father. So then all of a sudden I started like writing material about being a dad, and so a lot of the stuff just came from me being me. I mean, my big finale bit was this whole thing of like I would stop and look at the audience and I go, okay, a lot of you look at me like wondering, look, Fillmore. And by the way, I want as Filmore, a one-word name.
Oh. That's why I couldn't find it.
Yeah. I've got headshots that say Filmore on it, and it wasn't until Nickel. So anyway, but I would talk about like not growing up in the hood, and once I started becoming a dad, everything else just kind of opened up. I would do. Gosh, man, so much stuff. It writes itself. If you're a struggling comic, get someone pregnant. Or if you're a female comic, get pregnant. All of a sudden, you'll have a lot of stuff to talk about. Things you don't even think about, So, but the transition of the name happened because of Nickelodeon. Because after going through the process of auditioning and finally getting the job, my headshot said Fillmore, and they said, "Now, I mean, we looked at your paperwork. Your name is what? Philip Moore?" I said, "Yeah, my name is really Fillmore." And we just put it together. And he went, "Do you mind using your real name?" And I'm like, "Do you mind your checks clearing?" And so I said, "But why?" And they said, "Because according to like focus groups and things, kids think it's cooler to be able to call an adult by their first name. And if you don't have a first and last name, they wanted to up the level of making the kids feel special." So I'm like, it's not a secret. I'm not walking around going, "Shh, don't say my name." It's like, it's something that actually a couple of stand-up comics put together one day. They kept calling me Fillmore, and then it just became FIL, and I just went with it.
I love that. I had no idea. That's pretty interesting. But now Phil Town, since you did mention, of course, initially auditioning for Nickelodeon, how much did you know about Nick Arcade during the audition process? And were you big into video games during the time?
Nickelodeon had already shot a pilot, and by the way, when people sit up there on social media and go, "Hey man, I filmed somebody else in the arcade before you," and I'm like, no, all television shows do a thing called a pilot. Sometimes they don't have the cast that they're going to use, but they'll shoot something for proof of concept. And they had already done that with the producer that worked at Nickelodeon. So when you see this guy on the set of Get the Picture, which was Mike O'Malley's first show, doing Nick Arcade, it really is one of the producers of Nick Arcade filling in, because at that time they had not chosen a host yet. So they sent me that. So I had that to go by to get a feel of what the show was going to be about. And the answer to the second question is yes, I was into video games. I mean, I had an Atari, I had a regular Nintendo, I had the 8-bit Nintendo, I had an Atari, I had a ColecoVision, I had Donkey Kong in its original form, so I had to, and I used to go to places like, Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz. I remember Showbiz. Remember Discovery Zones, y'all? The
Yes!
ZZs! The ZZs!
Oh my God.
So I used to go to those places all the time, especially, my transition was sort of like college, grown man working, and then career change during my grown man work. So I was still in that, going out to arcades and playing with my couple little systems at home, blowing the cassette, popping it in there.
Here's a question about the dusty cartridges. The last resort for me, if the blowing didn't work and people are on the fence about this, is licking it. Were you a cartridge licker or no?
My tongue has never touched a cartridge.
Wow. All right. Listen, I was desperate. I had a certain amount of games.
That's how COVID started.
Yes. Yeah, I was really, cartridge licker 0. That was me. A question that, watching the show, especially since it was in syndication for so long, I would watch it and see kids bomb at Sonic and be like, how do you not know how to play Sonic? But I did read that sometimes you would be getting the games before they came out fully to the public.
Right. Yeah. The thing about, of course, again, another TV thing, most shows shoot well in advance of when it airs. And the coolest, this is probably aside from the check, the coolest thing about working for Nick Arcade was all of the video game companies would want to kiss our butts and they would send us stuff for free. They would get our address. I'd be like sitting at home, like on a regular random Saturday. Ding dong. Oh, it's the FedEx man. What do you have? A big buttload of games? Okay, bring them in. And so they were always sending us stuff. And sometimes they would send a lot of times they would send prototypes to the executive producers of the show in hopes that they would, put it on our show. And what they got is free advertisement. and we got to jump on a game. And so a game that you couldn't buy yet in the store, we would have on the show.
Smart. Also, RJ, people in the chat are calling you cartridge licker. So
I've really labeled myself here. I really did myself in.
He's no longer RJ. You are CL.
We're gonna change your name on the
CL.
Well, I mean, I have to say, Phil, that I think it's so awesome that we essentially, because RJ and I, we're Nickelodeon kids. I feel like we got to hang out with you, all throughout the 90s. It's so awesome. And I think the thing that I love the most is that you are a genuine fan. And I think that's what showed on the show as well. It's just like you were a fan of video games and that's what made it more exciting for us,
Yeah, I was a fan of video games and I was a fan of kids because that was something that Nickelodeon, like everybody talks about the 90s and how that was a special moment in time. And I don't want it to sound like a cliche or some awards show or like I'm giving a eulogy when someone dies, all the glowing things they say. But no, seriously, for real. 90s Nickelodeon was the best time ever. There was a mindset about what they were trying to do. They weren't trying to be anything else. A lot of days now there's algorithms and focus groups and they're all trying to, and how can we capture this? Nickelodeon just stopped and said, we don't care what Disney's doing. We don't care what this people are doing. We don't care what Saturday Morning's doing. And they would hire people, producers and show creators. And as long as it met sort of the mandate, the umbrella mandate of the company, you were free to play in that playground. And if it was unique enough, and that's the other thing I tell people, if you really think about all the shows, not just the game shows, but no two Nickelodeon shows were really alike back in the 90s. Even though they had kids in the situation, but like, Clarissa Talked to the Camera, Welcome Freshman was a high school drama. All that was SNL for kids. Keaton and Kel took the whole Lucy and Ethel thing and did it with a couple of dudes. It was crazy that no two shows looked alike. And that is what I mean by it would go with the big umbrella. This is something that Jerry Labourn, the founder of Nickelodeon, said to us. It was never something that was advertised on TV. It was never in any marketing things. But if you really want to know why the whole Nick is Kids thing worked so well, how all of the creators and producers that came into the network were able to do their job so well, was one of her big mandates was, if you have to tell a kid something's fun, then it isn't. So approaches, and nowadays, look, we fast forward, that's a saying. The saying is now, let's stop talking about it, let's stop being about it. That literally, she kind of like started that whole mindset way back, you know, when she founded Nickelodeon. And so that was the thing that was really cool about like working there. Like, you love kids. They would cast people who genuinely like kids, or could generally have fun with kids. Nobody ever felt like they were talking down to them. None of us ever felt like, you know, we were patronizing. And whatever it was we were doing, we were really either we were really into it, or we enjoyed watching people have fun. You know, like I've talked to some people that are chefs, and they don't necessarily eat all of their food because they would be, you know, really, awake, but they stop and go, they just love making a meal and sitting back and watching everybody enjoy. So that was the mindset of us. Either you really did enjoy it, or you really had a love for watching people enjoy things.
So what is interesting, and it's like destiny to me, is that you're a comic in Orlando, which is not really the hottest place to be. It's usually New York or LA. And then Nickelodeon Studios basically moves to you.
Yeah,
you know,
you couldn't have asked for like a better situation. And that's why I stop and I go, it was that whole 90s Nickelodeon thing. And even for me personally, was lightning in a bottle. It was like, how do you catch that? I don't know. It just happened. Yeah. You know, Mark Summers would move to Florida and have to live there for a while to shoot Double Dare. Mike had to fly in and move from New York to shoot Guts for a while. But I just got in my car and drove down Kirkman Road.
And now, speaking of Mark, since you brought him up, early on in your hosting, you had a breakdown in his office?
I would like to refer to it as my "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." There was so I never done television before. I mean, I'd done stand-up comedy, and my introduction into television was doing audience warm-up. Again, the time I started, made the transition into doing show business was when they were building both the Disney MGM Studios, is what it was called back then, and Universal Studios. And they were up and doing like soft opens. They were still building the rides. They were still testing them out. But both places got their sound stages and studio system working well before the park was able to open. So I started doing audience warm up for like, you know, various shows that were coming in. And it was just like, once they realized they were going to move Nickelodeon down, I had an agent, and she was like, "Hey, we're going to start sending you out an audition for a little bit more to the story than that. But basically, hey, there's going to be like a network moving here. Let's see if we can get you on that." Wow. So it was kind of like right place, really right place.
It's serendipitous, really.
Yes, it is.
And since we are talking about other incredible hosts like Mark and Mike, what were your relationships like with them?
Well, going back to Game Licker's question, there was a day we've been going through all of the rehearsals. We had been doing all of the stuff. We've been bringing in, they hire real kids and pay them to come and help be real kids as we work out the kinks and do run-throughs and stuff. And one day I went upstairs to my office. I was walking by, and Mark said, "Hey, man." I said, "Hi." He of course, he's the guy. He's the kiss the ring, and we kissed the ring because he wrote the blueprint of how to do this thing. And he's like, "How's it going?" I'm like, "It's going great." And people were around and stuff. And I was down there watching, man. You're like really nailing it. I said, "Yeah, it kind of sucks that we don't have like a teleprompter. So it's hard to remember the names, and it's hard to, remember the pronunciations, but we're getting there. I mean, it's first time ever doing it. He goes, no, man, you're doing a terrific job. And do you have any, is everything okay? I mean, anything you feeling skeptical about? And I'm like, hey, you know what? Can I go into your office for a second to just chat with you? And he goes, sure. And he shuts his door. And I'm like, yeah, so everything's good. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I don't even know what's going on. Read the card. It's Dr. Robotnik. I don't know what it's going. I had no idea, So I was like, look, I am going through the motions, doing what feels like I should be doing. Nobody's really giving me any direction. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because like Mark, Kirk, Summer, and Mike and I are 5 different people. And what they wanted was our own unique personalities. And so they weren't going to try to tell me how to do it. But deep down inside, the guy that had never done before was begging for someone to tell me if I was doing it right. And so that was Mark. And he sat down and he's like, what do you want to know? And it was things about like transitioning, the segue. Segue is like, you don't even notice it. But when you watch somebody who segues really well, your brain doesn't even realize how freaking into that you are, because they made something happen and it just went from one thing to the other. Remembering names. I mean, yeah, their names were on their badge, but it was weird. Like reading cards. That's the other thing. Again, I didn't have a teleprompter. Most of the money for Nick Arcade went into the tech stuff. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't like a lot of promotion for it. Wasn't a lot of commercials. I even talked jokingly about how it's the only show about video games that doesn't have a video game. There's a Double Dare video game. There's a Guts video game. There's a Rugrats video game. But there's no video game about the video game show. You couldn't buy a T-shirt. You couldn't buy a hat. You could buy merch for all these other shows. But like the money really went into the massive tech that it took to pull this show off. So, I mean, I had to and there's an art to reading a card. You don't want to block your face. You don't want to keep your head down too much. You want to do the up to down, the up to down. And I'm kind of nervous. Season 1 was, I was all over the place. So he sat down and gave me some pointers about how to read. He gave me some pointers about how to remember, little tricks to remember certain things. There were so many rules because when you get to the points, puzzles, pop quizzes, and prizes, each one played differently. It wasn't like the same game, and Double Dare was the same way. It wasn't, and Guts. I mean, every game played differently, but there was no teleprompter in front of me that I could just read it off of. So he gave me some really cool tips, and I've talked about it. That's why you know about it, because I really appreciate the way he just sort of like just opened up and just shared to help make my job successful.
I saw Mark do Double Dare live a couple years ago, and you don't realize it on TV, but in front of a live audience, he's so smooth and so quick. Mm-hmm. You also did a live tour with Mike O'Malley. So what was it like traveling cross country on a bus with Mike O'Malley?
No. All right, here's the thing. Mike and I never traveled on the bus. That was just for TV. But our team of 10 fantastic people that was our regular crew traveled on the bus. Mike and I would be flown to and from the various cities. And if it was a city, if we were going from one city like on a Friday to another city on a Saturday, then we would, they would have a car for us and stuff like that. We were so busy, I mean, they appreciate it. But the thing is, it was a hard job to do. I tell people like that. I literally said, my bucket list is done. The day that we played Madison Square Garden, we sold out Madison. Think about this now. Yeah. How many artists, how many teams, the Knicks play there, Beyonce's played there, Prince has played there. We played Madison Square Garden and we sold out. And then the next day, the New York Times entertainment section had a headline, Nickelodeon comes to town, Fillmore and Mike O'Malley are rock and roll for kids. I'm like, bucket list is done.
Wow.
So they treated us like they wanted to make us comfortable. So they treated us very well, and we appreciated it. I totally appreciate it. But traveling with Mike was a blast because He's a different energy, but together we are. You know what? It's so weird. In a lot of ways, we were the real life Keenan and Kel. If you think about their characters on the show, that was Mike was more of the Keenan and I was more of the Kel, and we were like that in real life. And he was a blast, man. He was a blast, and so much. It's so much more career oriented than I was. I mean, he's now, producer, a writer, director. I mean, if anybody's ever seen Orange and the New Black, more than half of the episodes he wrote, you know what I mean? And he's written his own off-Broadway shows. He was doing all of that kind of stuff. Me, I just wanted to like do a big help, so it was kind of interesting because again, I wasn't an aspiring performer. He reached to this point where that's what he wanted to do. He was doing commercials, he was doing acting, he was doing plays. I just literally tripped and fell into it because AT&T went on strike. So I hadn't really thought about long range goals. I just wanted to pay off my student loans.
There you go. Well, if I had a time machine, RJ, you can come with me. I would have loved to have been at that Madison Square Garden event. I bet
I would have just hung out on the bus. I would have ridden the bus. I wouldn't have been a big shot like Phil. I would have ridden the bus.
All right, hey, little bit of morbid stuff. I like to tell people things whenever I talk to folks like this that you would not be able to look up or find out on your own. Here's my little bit of insight for y'all.
Okay.
Since we talked about the tours. One little weird, little morbid thing. Okay, Maura Quirk was always our backup. So like if Mike got sick or I got sick or for some reason we couldn't do it. So like when we were rehearsing, Mo would be out there with us. So it was 3 people doing the show. And it's interesting, she had like a harder job because she had to learn both of our games. Mm-hmm. I was assigned certain games, Mike was assigned certain games, and there were things we did together. She had to learn all of mine and she had to learn all of his because she wouldn't know who she might be called upon to fill in for. Right. So But what was I going to say? Gosh, where am I going with this?
It was a scoop. You said you were going to give us a scoop.
Oh, the scoop. Okay, the scoop is, despite all of these cool little traveling things we did, they would not let us fly together.
Oh.
Because if something went down, you lost the whole show.
It's because you're royalty. That's exactly
No, that's not it. No. Nickelodeons want to make their money. That's what they want to do. They want, and if God forbid something tragic had happened, with both of us on the same plane, you'd lose the entire show. Right. But if I went down, then Mo would step in for me, and if Mike stepped down, and she would step in for Mike. But if we both went down, multi-million-dollar tour is now canceled. Right. So that's my morbid fun fact.
Wow.
We'll take it. We appreciate it.
Really brought the room down.
Well,
by the way, somebody mentioned, I don't know who was down there in the chat, mentioned something about liking the songs and a little insight on the songs, like singing the little songs. Yeah. I was Whose Line Is It Anyway before Whose Line Is It Anyway. Freestyle. I said freestyling the songs because and it came about quite interestingly. There was a day in which we had a technical problem, which happened quite a bit during season 1. I mean, this was a show utilizing technology that had never been used that way before. And so one day we had a hold. They came out. The stage manager said, we're going to hold for a second. The audience warm-up guy came out, started doing his thing. I went over and joined them. We were having fun with the kids. And, and we want the audience to stay up, beat and everything, and we want them to stay, especially with an audience full of kids. You don't want them getting antsy and then wanting to leave. We want them to stay for the rest of the show. We just don't know how long this hold is going to take. So somebody in the control room said, ooh, you know what, let's play some music down to the floor, the stage floor. And they started playing the Nick Arcade song, but it was like dun 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 dun. Bam, 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 bam. Dun, 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 dun. It was like on infinite freaking loop. And of course we're out there trying to, have fun with the kids, keep them up and make sure they're having a good time during this break. So when they finally said, okay, Phil, we fixed the problem, we're going back to shoot, and we all applauded, and I went back behind my podium. the very first time I heard that music again was at a video challenge. And to be sarcastic to the control room upstairs, I started making up words to the song. And then when we came back, I made up more sarcastic words to the song. There's that song is playing again. I don't think it'll ever end. You know, that kind of thing, you know? And the next thing you know, I'm getting a thing in my ear going, hey, Phil, we know you were trying to give us the business, but we kind of like that. Could you put some more? And that is how the video song Walk was born.
Perfect. Oh, man. Great.
I do have some questions about the contestants and the game itself.
Okay.
First of all,
here we go.
Carrie comes for City. Go ahead.
Why did the majority of children collect baseball cards? That was like the hobby for every other kid. Did you just throw that out when they had nothing to say?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so I gotta go back. I gotta go back and give you the non-good interview answer. It was the first time I'd ever done this. I'd never been on TV. I'd never had, and I was dealing with it with conditions that most of the other hosts didn't have. In other words, no teleprompter, that sort of thing. And so I didn't concern myself with crap that didn't concern me. I don't know how they got cast. I don't know what tests they gave them. I don't know who interviewed them. I don't know where they got their information from. All I know is I walk outside, come back in with a real ugly sweater on, and there's Skippy and Laura. And I just have to have fun with them. And then I'd go back to my dressing room, come out with another ugly shirt on. Oh, and there's Johnny and Susie. And I could not even spend a moment of brain power trying to figure out the who, what, where, for, and why. So the long answer to you is, I don't know. and that's why I don't know.
Okay. The next question is, some of the questions were a little, I guess, adult in terms of pop culture. There was a lot of Freddy Krueger and some things where you had to be a little more than just a kid. Do you have any idea why or who was writing those questions?
See my last answer.
Okay. Good. Okay. And now my third question, and I feel like we're going to get more of the same. The rumor was, in my research, that somebody bought too many Space Camp Vacations, and that's why they gave so many away all across Nickelodeon shows.
Now that I do know about.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, fantastic.
Okay, and you know what? You're absolutely right. And here's where I found out. We did a big reunion of sorts back in 2000. I want to say 2014. A gentleman named Matt Klickstein had written a book called the Nickelodeon Oral History of Nickelodeon. And he interviewed all of us. And then he had a big thing in New York City where we all got together. And it was literally like a high school reunion. Like people who I hadn't seen, children who are now grown up. Last time I saw them, they were little kids. And we were all there. And so afterwards, while we were there, someone asked that question. We were taking questions from the audience, and someone asked that question. And I literally turned to James Bethea and Karim Metef, the two geniuses who created Nick Arcade. And before they could answer, I stopped and said, yeah, man, why? Because I didn't know either. And that's exactly what happened. They said that when they were shown the stuff that they could get as prizes, for some reason, they didn't realize, it was almost like it was a mistake, but it wasn't on purpose. It was like, okay, I'm going to give you sort of an example, an analogy. Okay, imagine somebody said, okay, you can get a total of 50 things. All right. And these are all the things you can choose from. But for some reason you heard, oh, I can get 50 of any of these. And so you go on and go, okay, give me 50 space camps. What else can I have? And they went, well, you used all your 50. You want, what? I used all my 50? I thought I could get 50 of different things. No, you can get 50 total. And you're like, oh, snap.
Okay.
I spent it all on one thing.
Interesting.
That's sort of like what happened. I mean, that's my trying to explain it. But yeah, they misheard, misread, missed something. And said, yes, give us these many of those. Then when they went around, when they came back, they go, hey, so come on, what's some more prizes we can have? I'm like, well, you've already filled your quota. I'm like, and literally they were like, what do you mean we filled our quota? We've got this many of these, a whole bunch of Space Camp. We wanted to get some this and this. I'm like, no. You used up all your rest on Space Camp. And that's when we were like,
That's why the other trip was Universal Studios, and you guys were already there. The kid would just walk across the street, I presume.
Dude, I would say that all the time off camera. And there are a couple of outtakes which you'll probably never see, where it would be like, oh, terrific. You get to come right back to where you are. And all of a sudden you hear, cut.
Well, I mean, listen, I would have taken any opportunity to go to Space Camp because you guys made it look so cool. But did outside of Space Camp, was there another prize that was maybe one of your favorites? Because that karaoke machine, oh my God, I would kill. The Skechers shoes, so many good ones. But did you have a favorite prize?
You know what? I like the LA gear with the pumps, the shoes with the pumps. It was some shoes and had like a little basketball in the front.
Yes.
And you squeeze that thing, and that thing would like your foot would turn blue.
Let's bring them back.
Hey, that's right. Emily B. The kid would walk across the street. Exactly. And a lot of our Space Camp is that. I'm reading the comments here.
Go for it.
Space Camp is actually the best. And no kid complained about going to Space Camp because for them it's just one. It's for you, the viewer, seeing it repetitively,
right?
But like Heather, if you won Space Camp, and then Game Liquor, you won Space Camp. For y'all, it's like, oh, that's just my one and just your one. But I'm looking at it going, wow, 2 Space Camps. That's kind of like So yeah. That's your perspective. So that's why that is the real story as to why. And later on that night, I'm going to go ahead and move a little forward here. Later on that night, after this wonderful event, we all went out for food. We had dinner and stuff. So I said, okay, you know what, guys? We stayed in touch, the creators of the show and I. We stayed in, but we never talked business. And now, at this point in my life, now I'm a television producer. I am now what they were back then. And so we started talking about things like casting, like I want to know, why did they choose me? Because sometimes I'm in a situation where I have to, audition people and I know what I look for. So I want to know what they look for. And I asked them about the wardrobe. I did ask them about the wardrobe. And I actually have a clip of this that I put up a while ago at this event where they were explaining that when the wardrobe department would go and get a bunch of clothes, they would just go out and mass shop. And they would come in, they wouldn't bring me in to try on the outfits. They wouldn't bring me in to give my opinion on the outfits. The outfits would just be there. And they said that the way they chose them was they would lay them out on a table, a conference room table. This big, by the way, the conference room table was a big, giant blimp. It was a beautiful conference table. But they would lay out all the clothes and they would just kind of go, all right, how about like this one, this one, this one, and this one, this one, this one. And so what I ended up saying was, so what looked great on the conference table looked like crazy on Phil Moore. They never ever saw the clothes on my body until they were already purchased and hanging in my dressing room, ready for me to come out.
Wow. Well, somebody asked, how many episodes did you actually get to film in a day?
Wow, that's a really good question. We started off doing 3 a day. By the time we got to season 2, there were some days when we did 4. Wow. And again, another little inside scoop. If you always wanted to know, if you were always wondering, let me take it back. A way to tell what day it was is how groggly my voice is. Because if it were a Monday show, then I'm talking just like this. But if I'm talking like I'm a chain smoker, that's probably a Friday afternoon show.
Did you have any like tips or tricks in order to like keep your voice ready to go?
Just regular stuff like singers do. Tea and honey, some Ricolas, nothing really crazy. And then the hardest part was just shutting up. Like when you're not working, shut up. That was like so hard for me to do.
Fair enough.
You have an additional smorgasbord of Nickelodeon credits. You were on the first episode of all that.
That's correct.
and you were trying to get into a Chuck E. Cheese. Do you remember this sketch?
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. It was a Chuck E. Cheese type place. I was playing myself, so very little acting involved there. And I was like, everybody's standing in line to get in, but I'm walking up, going, just trying to cut in. And Katrina Johnson, who was at the time the youngest one on the show at the time, she was playing the bouncer. And I'm trying to get in, and she's like, "Your name's not on the list, pal." And I'm like, "Excuse me, but little girl, I'm Phil Moore." And she's like, "Oh, can I touch you?" I'm like, "Well, sure." And I stick her. She grabs me and she like throws me across the room. It was like really physical and a lot of fun. But yes, I do remember that. I was on the very first episode of all that.
Now, there was one show that I couldn't find any footage of, and I'm upset about it. It was Wienerville. Do you remember what you did on Wienerville?
No, it's so weird. I was on Wienerville. I was on What Would You Do?
Yes.
That was, and the reason why I say no is, it was like such a fun time. Every time you turned around, we were being asked to do things on other shows, and sometimes they would just tell us like just the day before what the setup was, and then from that we would go do something else. So they all do sort of blend. I have pictures of me a couple of times on What Would You Do, and Mark and I both said we don't know what the hell I did. Neither of us can remember what I did on the episode, yet there are multiple pictures from multiple appearances. There's evidence that I was there.
Did you also get your infant son to appear on all that?
He wasn't there. Okay, so let me talk to you about my kid.
Yes.
If you are a true fan of Nickelodeon, you've seen my kid on so many shows, including one that was his own. All right, so let me start out with this. When he was little, when I say little, I'm talking about maybe 5 years old, 6 years old, maybe. There was an episode of All That, and there was a sketch that they did called Super Dude. And there's an episode in which Milkman has a shrinking ray, and he aims it at Super Dude, and he turns it on, and a big explosion happens, and he shrinks and reduces Super Dude down to a little kid. That kid is my son.
Adorable.
He played little Super Dude. Now here's talking about surreal. So now my son now is grown, and he lives out in LA with me, and he works as a first AD and in the business, and he got a job working for an upfront event where television networks kind of parade their new wares for an upcoming season a couple of years ago, like right before COVID, 2019. And he was out there, and his job was working as a first AD on the segment that NBC was doing, and Keenan was there. And he goes over to Keenan, and he's like, "Do you remember me?" And Keenan's like, oh my gosh, you're Phil's son." And it's like, so it was really weird. Like, yeah. But the other thing he did was there was an episode of episode of Keenan and Kel. And it was the two-parter episode I think it was called The Big Goodbye. And the premise of the episode was Keenan's family was going to be moving away. His father had gotten another job, and it was a two-parter. And at one point, they are packing up all of Keenan's stuff, and they pull out this toy robot that they used to play with when they were little. And all of a sudden, the screen does one of those diddly-doo, 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 and you see little Keenan and little Kel. My son was little Keenan. At this point, he was now like about 8 years old. So he's now a little bit older, and he was playing little Keenan. And then if you watch any episodes of Figure It Out, my son was one of the charade brigades.
No way. I love it. I love that now he's cemented in Nickelodeon history as well.
Yeah, he is. As a matter of fact, some website did a top 10 of the favorite Nickelodeon shows, and Figure It Out was on there, and Nick Arcade was on there, and he posted something online like, "Hey, look, Dad, we both made the cut."
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh my gosh. So, RJ,
Yes?
why don't you ask one more question? I'll ask one more question, and then we'll go to the game that we have.
Okay.
Oh,
this one is a curveball. This is way off the Nickelodeon page. I have to ask. You were in the 1997 movie Rosewood.
Yeah.
With Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle, and my favorite, Esther Roll.
And John Voight.
Yes. What was that like?
Okay. We're having fun here, but I cannot talk about Rosewood without getting for real emotional. That was like such an amazing, incredible, life-changing moment for me. Because first of all, it's based off of a true story. And the first day of shooting, you know, people, they shoot movies out of order. And my first day of shooting was actually my last scene in the film because it required so much makeup. My character goes through a thing where an angry mob beats him up. And then to rescue me, John Voight, you know, Angelina Jolie's daddy, rescues me and gets me to safety by hiding me in the jail. I'm not arrested. He's hiding me there for safety. So they shot that scene first because number one, it was a night scene. And number two, it required a ton of makeup because I look like crap. And so my first day working was not even a group scene. It is call sheet says 1:15 a.m. John Voight, Phil Moore. That's it.
Dear Lord.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I can't even talk. I can't even talk.
Experience.
Yeah. And then of course auditioning for the late great Singleton, John Singleton. He was the director of that.
Yeah. My
My final screen test was for him. And being able to sit down and chat with him about like various things on the film. Don Cheadle and I to this day, we're not buds. I'm not even gonna play the Hollywood game like we're buds and stuff. But the thing that's really dope is like if I'm somewhere, if we're at an event, if we're just at like Disney and Don is there, he will yell, "Hey Phil." I'm like, you freaking remember me? You're like, you know, it's like, I mean, I get blown away with just how this cat is just so real, you know? I was, you know, barely an actor in this thing. And this guy to this day will stop, he will shake my hand, will give a hug. How you doing, bro? What's up? I mean, that was crazy. And then to work with Esther Roll, you know, I'm a lot older than y'all, but I grew up watching, you know, Good Times and the original Roots and stuff. So now here I am working with an iconic legend on what was ultimately her last project before she passed.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
And then now, and of course, there's Michael Rooker. I met him. He's the same way. Like if I'm making, you know, I think the last time I saw Michael Rooker was at a Comic-Con back in like 2017. And there's a long line to go see him. And I'm like, I wonder if he'll remember me. And as soon as we caught eyes, he told everybody, hold up, come over here, man. And we came over, he's hugging and stuff like, and I was like, wow, dude, you remember. That's crazy. I was prepared to do, remember back a few years ago? Yeah, I was up there. I was going to do the Mark Summer, like, crackly voice, yo, and we were done. He's like, come over here, man. And it just blows my mind. These people, this is why these people are what they call good Hollywood. You know what I mean? It's why
Thank goodness.
They're good Hollywood. They really are. So, and Ving Rhames. Ving Rhames just, he is massive in stature, massive in talent, but humble and giving and helping you with a role. Because again, I'm not an actor. The reason why I actually auditioned for the part was Nickelodeon was done. I'd done all the stuff with Nickelodeon. I'd done Nick Arcade in the early 90s. I'd done You're On in 1999. I'd done all those other things in between. And now Nickelodeon was done. And it was like, well, what do you do next, Phil? And I thought, well, maybe the next natural step is to be an actor. And it was like, well, what do you want to act in? I'm like, I don't know, maybe we start out small with commercials. And then all of a sudden, a big Warner Brothers film comes to town. And I was fortunate enough to get it. And now I'm in a room with John Singleton, Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle, Esther Roll, John Voight, and Michael Rooker.
Talk about an all-star cast. Yeah.
And me.
And
it's
you're an
crazy.
all-star, Phil. Come on. I mean,
no, please. No, look, I'm telling you.
I don't think Esther Roll could make up her own lyrics.
But that was my hand at like seeing what would I want to do next, and that's literally. And as it turned out, acting wasn't for me. I mean, I think I did a decent job. I held my own. The film was groundbreaking for me, but it was I get paid for being myself, not becoming a character, and I realized that I enjoy that much more, whether it's doing stand up or hosting a show, or even now as a producer. My job as a producer is to come up with concepts, and they're all coming out of like me, as opposed to I am playing now the burglar, now I'm playing the priest, now I'm playing. I get paid for being me, and that's kind of like what I kind of gravitated.
Yeah, you found what fit for you,
What fits Phil.
And what fit Phil. I love it. Well, okay, so before we get to the game, I love it. Before we get to the game, one of the other things we wanted to ask about was your experience performing with the remotes. And we wanted to know if you have a favorite TV theme that you like to sing, or one that you got to perform.
Okay. So for those that don't know, the Remotes is an LA band, and we do TV theme songs. And it's and the other thing is really cool is it's made up of industry people. Like the guy that created it is the executive producer of the $100,000 Pyramid. The keyboardist is the former keyboardist is the head of development at Nickelodeon. The horn player works in development. It's one of the horn players works for development at the Disney Channel. It's like we're all industry people, and we're doing TV theme songs. My favorite, I have to say, is there's a thing that do a mashup where I sing the Brady Bunch theme song, but I do it in the style of James Brown. So
whoa.
So and you can find on if you put a Fillmore Remotes James Brown, it'll pop up right away. Doing the Brady Bunch theme is the story of a lovely lady, but doing it like James Brown, that's a whole different thing.
Love.
And then the other song that I like doing a whole lot is The Love Boat, because it's just cheesy. It reminds me of like Bill Murray on Saturday Night Live as the cheesy lounge guy. I just get the ooze mozzarella. I'm just so cheesy. The Love Boat, soon we'll be making another run. It's like it's so cheesy. Oh. And I have so much fun doing it.
I love it. All the mozzarella. Well, okay,
all
Phil.
The mozzarella.
So much. So we have a game for you. Okay? This is a game of Would You Rather. So there's no wrong answers. Okay, whatever you say is the correct answer. Okay. So we're gonna bring the graphics up, and if you want to explain why you picked something, you can, and if not, that's fine too. So
okay. Wait,
Phil Moore.
I need a little more light. I've got my little light here, but it's just.
Go ahead.
Can you see me okay?
Yeah.
Can you see me okay?
Yeah.
It's getting dark now. I've got a little light here.
Ooh,
there
we go.
Okay. All right, cool.
A nice mood.
Okay, Phil.
All right.
Would you rather have to get a tattoo of Mikey or get a tattoo of Mungo?
Oh, easy. Get a tattoo of Mungo.
Okay. Easy.
Why? You want to know why? Know why?
Yes.
Because like I'm just a bouncy, fun, kind of happy Carlton Banks kind of guy, and Mungo would give me some sort of like fake street cred.
Right. This guy has seen stuff.
Yeah, Mungo, you see that tattoo on me, you go, oh, don't mess with it. If I was just sitting there and I had the tattoo on, and you saw the tattoo on my arm, you go, oh, don't mess with that guy. And then I'd ruin it by opening my mouth and go, hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Don't mess with that guy. He's been to the video zone.
Exactly.
Is what they would say, yes.
You see those spikes on him right there? He's almost doomsday. Look at him.
All right.
Yes.
All right. RJ, you want to read the next one?
Yes, next one.
Hands on buzzer.
Would you rather go back in time and meet Prince? Or would you go back in time and meet David? But let's say you're having brunch. Would you rather have brunch with Prince or Bowie?
Prince. As a matter of fact, around it was April of last year, I went out to Paisley Park and did the tour.
Oh,
that's
my
how
gosh.
I am Prince. David Bowie, R.I.P., classic dude. But I was there again. I'm older than most of the people listening. I was there when Prince came out. I was there for his For You album when he had the big afro and his first cut was Soft and Wet. I was there when he had the perm and he had no shirt on and he had the little pork chop hair singing, you know, I Want to Be Your Lover. I was there. I know that he first wrote Nothing Compares to You and that he first wrote I Feel For You, made famous by Chaka Khan. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Now,
that's how like deep.
If you had to cover one TV theme song as Prince, what would it be?
Good question.
No, it's not. Well, it is a good question, but I kind of beat you to the punch because I've already done it.
Oh, and what was it?
Okay, so here it is. The remotes. We sat down the other day, like literally last week, and I pitched some ideas for new mashup songs. Because the only one we had the James Brown one, we had one for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where you're playing one music but you're singing the lyrics. And so the new one that I just wrote was the Beverly Hillbillies, done by Let's Go Crazy. And it works. So so if you don't know the theme song to Beverly Hillbillies, folks, sorry, look it up. But the theme song is Listen to a Story about a man named Jed, poor mountaineer. Okay, so here we go. Ready? Listen to a story about a man named Jed, poor mountaineer, barely kept his family fed, and then one day, see, it works. It's a perfect mashup. So we haven't performed it yet, but I just wrote it last week. And at our next show, we will be performing the Beverly Hillbillies to the tune of Let's Go Crazy.
Wow. That almost like fits too well, like as if that should have been
it was made for it.
It was made for it. Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the next would you rather. Okay.
Yes.
Would you rather have to sit in the pie pod once a day or be slimed once a day?
I kind of think that this one is sort of unfair because my decade of Nickelodeon, it felt like I got slimed every day, even though Nick Arcade's not a messy show. So I will go with have to be slimed once a day because, be quite honest, I still got slime and cracks and crevices to this day.
Okay.
I feel like I've actually already kind of lived the being slimed once a day. I really do.
Fair enough. All right, RJ, you want to read the next one?
Yes. Would you rather compete on The Amazing Race with Mike O'Malley, and under these rules, you would have to fly on the same plane? Or would you rather compete on Nailed It with Mark Summers?
I would say The Amazing Race. Anything that gives me an opportunity to like expel this energy, I'm all for it. The idea of like, you know, cooking and I cook okay, but not really my thing. So Amazing Race with Mike. Yeah.
Okay. Final answer. Perfect. All right. This next one's hard. Okay. This one's really tough, and we apologize. Would you rather live in a replica of the Death Star or live in a replica of the Batcave?
This one's hard. Stay right there. Don't you go anywhere.
No.
I'm gonna keep talking.
It's gonna do more props. I think we're now getting to see Fillmore. You know what I mean?
I have an actual leather jacket. Are you kidding me? Live in the freaking replica? Are you kidding me? I wear this on with my Batman underoos, man. Are you kidding me? I would live in a replica of the Batcave all day long. Oh. And I would talk like this. They would probably help my voice. Hi, kids. Welcome to the show.
Oh my God. Love it. Perfect. Okay.
Bat leather. And this is actually Batman Beyond.
So good. So good. All right. RJ.
Would you rather live in the universe of the last video game you played, or would you rather live in the last movie you watched?
Ooh. Wow. Now that's the hard one.
Okay.
Because the last video I played was, I don't know what the exact name of it, but like on the PS5, I've got the Extreme Tetris where you can go to worlds, and every time you go from one place to you're like traveling through the planets and stuff. It reminds me of Star Fox a little bit. So I don't know if I want to like contend with like boulders falling on me every day. But then the last movie that I watched was The Eternals. And like, no.
Huh.
Wow. I guess I'd have to say the last movie.
Okay.
Because I mean, you know, at least with the Eternals, and at the end, everything was done. You got the big giant thing sticking out of those, you know, but the Earth is saved. But like, I could be just walking to Starbucks, and then boom, a Tetris piece comes down. So
Right. Yeah. That's before we go to the final one, Phil, people want to know, who is your Batman? Whether animated, in person, any Batman.
Oh wow. Wow. I think for the sake of, okay, my answer is based on consistency.
Okay.
Consistency of excellence. And that is Kevin Conroy.
Yes, absolutely.
Because Michael Keaton had a movie that was good. Michael had a Keaton that wasn't so good.
Did.
You know, Christian Bale had the first two I love. The third one, it's okay, you know. But when it comes to somebody, I can't name a bad episode of Batman the Animated Series.
Wow. Yeah. And shout out to the Joker also, because
Mark Hamill. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Kevin Conroy.
Okay.
He's my Batman.
Yay. All right. Phil, we have one final Would You Rather. This is the last one. Wait,
hold it. You know, I just realized too.
What?
Kevin Conroy is actually the voice of Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond.
Well, isn't this beautiful?
Look at that synergy.
You tie that all together.
There you go.
What did I tell you about? What did I tell you about the transition? What did I tell you about
a Mark Summers level call.
Boom. Yeah, Mark will be proud right now.
All right. So the final one. Would you rather have an episode of Nick Arcade with your favorite band as contestants, or have an episode with your favorite TV cast as contestants?
Okay, that one is super easy too. It would be my favorite TV cast because I gotta move to better light. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna move. I'm gonna lift up the whole
Let's
thing.
go
and
on
move
an adventure.
a little bit closer. Here we go. All right, there we go. Chocolate Man in the dark doesn't work. Okay, here we go. All right. So the answer is Nick Arcade with my favorite TV cast of contestants, because had Nick Arcade gone a third season, I had already pitched and got approved by the network what I called the game show version of Nick Arcade, in which, I still to this day would love to do this. I, of course, would be the host of the show, and my contestants would be on one team would be Summer Sanders and Kirk Fogg, and on the other team, Mike O'Malley and Mark Summers.
Oh.
And that's the 5 game show hosts all on one show. And I've always wanted to do that. If I could go back in time and do that, I would make that episode happen. I would take out an episode from season 2 and make that one happen so that we got that in the record books as having happened.
But why can't we do it now?
You know, everybody's got, grown up and busy. And everybody's doing stuff. Mike is big mucky muck. Mark Summers is up in somewhere he lives now. Summers lives out somewhere with mountain stuff. I'm here in LA, like coughing smog. We're all over the place.
No, all we need is one afternoon,
No, now we've got to deal with travel. We've got to deal with airfare. We've got to deal with per diem.
And you can't have everybody on the same plane either.
COVID protocols.
Yeah.
It's just a whole thing.
Okay. Well, I still would like to see it, so I'm still putting it out in the universe that if it could happen. I'm
telling you, that was like the episode that never happened. That is the one, and I pitched it, and I was like, dude, we got to do this, but we didn't get picked up for a third season because it was going to be a third season episode.
Man. Well, we did try to get Joey Fatone to join us today, but he is filming today. So,
wow.
I know he did want to be here. So, shout out to Joey Fatone. We love you so much. But
he's
Phil,
so crazy busy. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. But before we do wrap this up, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. We can't thank you enough.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Both of you have been great. RJ, Heather, everybody, you guys have been just fun. And you had new questions. I like that. And I gave you new scoops. So that's kind of fun too. Well, I always try to think of something, again, it was something that I kind of like to do, like tell them something that I haven't told anybody else. So we managed to get that in. And the game was fun too. That was a fun game.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dang. Well, like I said, RJ literally wrote like 5 pages of notes. So Phil,
I have so much. Your first movie appearance as basketball player number 2, we didn't get to.
Oh,
the
I watched
elephant
that whole
story.
movie. It's yeah, whatever. There's so much here. What are you doing now? What is going on with you? What's happening?
Well, right now, it's so funny. It's a circle of life, Simba. I did a whole bunch of things, and finally got back to doing game shows. So I am what's called a senior challenge producer. I'm the guy that makes up the games on the various shows, and I'm talking about literally just wrapped on Kevin Hart's show, Celebrity Game Face, which is on E. So the games that they play with the celebrities in this sort of environment.
Yes.
I came up with the game of them. There's a new show coming out this year. Look for it, folks, called The Wheel. It's a show from England, but we brought over the host from London and we did episodes here. It's going to be airing coming up. It's going to be on NBC. And right now there's a show on Hulu called Exposure. It's like a reality. I'm producing Exposure.
No
season
way.
2. We just started. I just started on season 2.
Stop it.
Coming up. So right now we're coming up with the challenges and the various games. And if you really are a fan of the show, tell you what they're changing this year. Last year it was all pictures. The Flash challenge was take a picture. The Portfolio challenge was take a picture. This year it's take a picture for the Flash challenge, shoot a video short for the second challenge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So and literally when I was late coming on because we were sitting here having discussions about ideas that I had pitched them yesterday, and the network and the executive producers had notes on them, and we were having our discussions trying to make more great TV, more great streaming, not TV, streaming, because this is on Hulu.
Hey, streaming's where it's at.
I know, right? Exactly. But that's what I'm doing. I went a full circle. I did a whole bunch of other things and finally came back to doing games and challenges. So
yeah, that's
great.
I was going to say, RJ, sometime you and we need to get together. We need to compete on something. I want you as my partner.
That's fine. We could do a race, a foot race, something simple. Go to a park. You don't need all this stuff.
Fine, that works.
Throw some frisbees. What do you want to do?
Things I'm all terrible at. Great.
Choose your poison.
Phil, we would love to pick your brain more at some point in the future. You've been such a delight. Thank you so much for bringing so much joy into our lives tonight. This has just been such a blessing.
Well, look, I tell you, the thing about what it is that I do and where I am now is that I really, really enjoyed the journey through Nickelodeon that got me to everything that I'm doing now. And I could have been just a guy just doing it, but remember I talked about how Nickelodeon didn't really invest a lot of money in things like marketing, commercials, and promotion. So the fact that there are people out there that still want to talk about Nick Arcade that didn't have the big, massive advertising budget like Guts or Double Dare is because of people like you. Seriously, 90s Nick fans, y'all are the best. I owe so much to each and every one of you because this show, according to what it looked like on the books, should have disappeared into obscurity. But 90s Nick fans,
now, since you did just say that you owe us, can you do us one small favor?
Would you like a song?
Would you have a song?
No,
There's another favor. This is simpler.
Okay.
Could you announce that Kid Cadet and I are going to space camp?
All right. Well, I never did because Andrea always did that.
Well, why don't
if you want to change it up a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, hey, you two did a great job. You got in there and you beat Mongo. Hey, Heather, RJ, you are going to space camp. Yeah. All right, listen, thanks for playing along. You two did a great job. We'll see you next time on Nick Arcade.
I collect baseball cards.
Oh my God. Oh, thank you. Well,
move to the right. Go to the right. RJ, what is wrong with you? Go to the right.
I would always say, they're in trouble when you have to tell them to press start.
Well, wait, listen. I want to do one more thing before we go because I know we're all wrapped up. But I want to give a little props to the contestants because the one thing about the geniuses that created the tech to make the show work. They made the show work, and the way Nick Arcade worked was, you know how when you take your computer mouse and there's a little arrow and it moves around, when you get it to a thing and you click it. They created a program to make to trick the computer thinking a free moving body was the cursor. That's how that's how you do things in the show. But the one bug that they couldn't figure out in 1991 was how to reverse the picture, the image. So when the kids were in the video zone looking at tons and tons of monitors, it was a mirror image of them. That's why when you are looking at it going, the thing is right there, stick out your left arm, and a kid's sticking out his right arm, that's because they're seeing it inverted.
Flip.
So I always go in a world in which it says game flicker. In a world.
That's who I am now, and I'm not ashamed of myself. So
GL, no more
I've
RJ, it's
accepted.
GL, baby. Hashtag GL lives matter. When the kids are there sort of messing up, it is because they're a little disoriented. And that's why I never talk smack about them, because they were doing something that was unusual. Nobody, we look, nowadays we all run out, we put on an Oculus, nobody thinks nothing of it. But back then it didn't exist. So that thing was very disorienting and nobody knew how to handle it. And then instead of it having it in a real image, it was reversed. So kudos to any contestant that ever was on Nickelodeon. Yes, your peers may have thought, what is wrong with them? But I understand the challenge that you had to deal with.
You had their backs. We appreciate
I
you,
did.
Phil.
That's why I
You're
was
the
always
best.
trying to help them. I wasn't just doing the show. I was really trying to help them get the space camp.
Which we're going to now, and I can't wait.
Yay!
I wonder if
All
it still
right, wear your
exists.
British Knights.
I will. Before we let you go, Phil, we're going to go over our upcoming guests that we have. So on Thursday, RJ's joining me again with Clownvis. I'm so excited. The following Tuesday, we have Ty Zamora from Alien Ant Farm. And then we're starting February 8th, Christopher Lee Parson, who's the voice of Junkrat from Overwatch. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Phil, we have to have you back. We barely scratched the surface. You are so much fun.
RJ's got like a whole list of things there, and I'm sure you've got some too. And if I didn't get to anybody's comments here, definitely let's get back together and let's finish out the memoirs of Phil Moore.
Done and done. And now we have that on video, so we're holding you to it. So thank you guys so much for watching. RJ, Game Liquor, thank you for riding this out with me. And Phil, thank you so much. So until we all meet again, we will see you guys real soon. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Goodbye, everybody.